Welcome back to our live training session. In this tutorial, we're going to be taking a look at dialing in our part throttle tuning. This is going to be including setting up our fuel, spark timing, as well as our variable cam control tables so that we have proper fuel and spark and overlap as we're in our driving conditions. Now, we're not going to get into full throttle tuning in this tutorial. That's going to be the next tutorial on our low cam or non-VTEC of operation. Let's jump in here and talk about where we're at and some things that we need to know and keep in mind while we're doing our calibration process. I'm going to talk about what exactly we're going to be doing here in this tutorial, and then we'll jump right in and we'll capture some data logs and start our calibration process. It's actually pretty straightforward, but let's discuss a few variables that we need to account for before we start to tune. So the very first thing, taking a look here, I am connected to my MaxxEcu, so I'm keyed on in the car for power. The Max is powered on. I have that plugged into my laptop. I'm in the online state. We can see that up top here at ECU Online. Now, the last tutorial we took a look at the idle tuning. So we know we sorted out our VE values, 0 to 1% throttle range, 500 to 1500 RPM. We put those around 17%. Now it's extremely low because we're not looking at and including the map pressure in our volumetric efficiency calculation. What we're actually including is going to be our baro pressure, which is why, because key on engine off here, we're taking a look, baro pressure is 100 kPa, map pressure here is 100 kPa, they're matching each other, that's correct. But when the engine's running, the map pressure is going to be pulling something like the stock cams, 30, 40 kPa, where the baro pressure is still going to be reading atmospheric pressure. And what that's going to do is require us to have a much lower volumetric efficiency value because the baro pressure is fed into our volumetric efficiency calculation rather than the map pressure, simply because we have that selected here under fuel general, under the use map signal, we have that disabled. So as I was mentioning when we were creating the base map, when we have this selected, it's saying that for a doubling in map pressure, we double our fuel. And likewise, if we go in and we have less map pressure, we need to then have less fueling, and it has that relationship, a one-to-one relationship. So when we don't include this, we don't reference the map pressure, we reference the baro pressure. Now I have the map pressure sensor hooked up through a vacuum block through to the individual throttle body runners, so we're still getting a map pressure reading, and I find that's useful to have that data, even if I don't plan on using the map pressure for doing any actual fuel or spark tuning and using that as my load input. So because we have that toggled off, it references baro, and that's why our VE numbers are so low right here. Now, once we get up to higher throttle angles, 60, 100% throttle range, our VE values here should be relatively normal values in terms of that cylinder filling percentage, because we're essentially at atmospheric pressure at these higher throttle angles here. Baro pressure will be matching atmospheric pressure, and therefore our VE values here should be pretty valid. But when we're in our vacuum area here, I'm expecting that these values are probably gonna be lower. So our job in this tutorial is to go in and calibrate everything from, let's say, 50, 60% throttle down here to about 1% throttle. So we're gonna go ahead and our low cam, again, we have our two axes set up here, so 0 and 100. 0 is when VTEC is off. We have VTEC disabled right now. We're focusing on low cam tuning. We're gonna be dialing this in. So we're gonna be figuring out what our VE values should be in the table to give us proper airflow representation and proper fueling delivery to our engine. Now, we specified in our target lambda table across all of these ranges what we want that desired target lambda to be, so we don't need to worry about that. All we need to do at this point is to manipulate the VE values so that the actual lambda matches the target lambda, and our closed loop correction is making minimal adjustments. And we'll be looking at this through data logs and watching that calibration process. Now, in addition to this, another thing to mention here is that our spark timing table is set very conservative. We can see here below 50% throttle, we have our spark timing here above 2000 RPM set at 20 degrees. Now, we should probably be about 10 to 15 degrees higher in terms of spark timing in our part throttle drivability range here, but we have it conservative so we can map out our airflow model table, so the VE table, get that all worked out, get our fueling in line. And once that's accomplished, then we can come in here and take a look at optimizing our spark timing. We're gonna look at that at the back half of the tutorial. Now, a couple additional things that we need to account for that we haven't talked about yet. If we jump up here under fuel general, under our injection at event angle, this is going to be our end of injection reference. We're gonna learn how we can dial these in once we've dialed the main V table in, once we've dialed in our spark time. We can come back in here. One of the last things we can take a look at is optimizing our injection angle. So we're gonna learn the trial and error method to figure out what these values should be at. We have them at 360. That's a good starting point for pretty much any piston engine, 360 degrees across the whole table. That'll get you going. That'll get you probably about 90% of the way, and then we can further tweak and adjust those values, again, based on looking at some trial and error, and I'll explain how that's gonna go at the end of the tutorial. The other variable that we have to account for here is our variable cam control. So if we jump in here, I wanna take a look at this real quick. Under the VVT, we've talked about setting up in that last tutorial, the offset here at negative 226.5 degrees. That zeroed out the variable cam, the actual measurement of the rotation of the cam. We've zeroed that out. We talked about that. So our intake cam in one position here shows 0 when our commanded is 0. So that way we know the Max understands the position of the cam and understands then how to control things in that closed loop control orientation for our variable cam control. So all of our settings here look good, but what we need to consider here is going to be going in and setting up our PID gains, our frequency, even our feed forward table all has to be considered. Now I want to go and edit a few things. Thanks for checking out our teaser clip. If you want to see the rest of this video and more than 500 hours of current EFI training we have to offer, make sure you click right here. If you want to go and check out more teaser clips from this training course, click here, and you don't want to miss any of the videos we're going to be releasing on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and click here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.